On today's episode of Anime Afterthought, ReZero Season 2 Episode 12, The Witch's Tea Party. We were forewarned that the payment for the third entrance to the Witch's Tea Party would be truly unfathomable. So what would Subaru have to pay that was more agonizing than his most gruesome death? Behold the unthinkable present as Subaru is made to bear witness to the aftermath and carnage left in his wake after every single loop. I'll be the first one to admit today's episode was amazing. Scientifically speaking, I don't think this series has ever really touched on the fact of are the timelines themselves completely erased and redone, or are they still ongoing? And lo and behold, this gives us a startling look into what happened after his death. Like, today's episode was amazing. Couple that with the fact that we literally end on another giant witch's tea party. Like, everyone is gathered and it was amazing. So amazing. Now, last we left off, we had one of the best episodes so far. We finally find out, yes, Beatrice is a spirit, in fact, under contract to the Witch of Greed, Echidna, to protect the Forbidden Library for the last 400 years. She's been waiting for a particular individual, that person, to free her from her contract, a dream she has given up on to the point where she's like, you know what, if you can't save me, then you're gonna have to kill me. She puts this burden on top of Subaru, and before he even tries to attempt to talk her down from this suicidal path, the Bow Hunter shows up once again to wreak havoc, giving way to a chase that leads us to another giant revelation. Mei Lee, the blue-haired girl from Subaru's Brat Pack, is in fact Elsa's partner and responsible for a slew of stuff going all the way back to season 1, but most recently destroying the village, thus killing Frederica and Petra once again. What was once a promising loop is becoming more and more dismal by the second, as once again Elsa Grandhert has caught up to him, and even though Beatrice is a 400-year-old spirit, she is not enough to take on the Bow Hunter. In a sacrificial move of pushing Subaru to safety, Beatrice has fallen victim to the Bow Hunter. But with a smile on her face, it indicates that she has finally achieved her dream, freedom from this lonely life. But not before one final move. Using the last of her power, Beatrice is able to transport Subaru back to the sanctuary, but not before Elsa is able to deal some damage. Sporting a fancy new eye patch thanks to the Bow Hunter gouging his eye, Subaru makes his way to the sanctuary trials, where once again he is confronted with Amelia. This time she is, well, not the same girl we left behind. Due to the tremendous pressure put on her by the sanctuary trials, outside interference, as well as the supposed abandonment by Subaru, it looks like Amelia has finally snapped. With a crazed look in her eyes, she is resembling Satella more and more. At this point in time, this loop is a complete disaster, but with all roads pointing in one direction, Subaru heads out for his final confrontation. Backed by Garfield, they finally make their way to Roswell. With Subaru filled with questions and Garfield filled with anger, they finally confront the magician. Even armed with a turn by death, it seems Roswell has the upper hand. Using Ram as a meat shield decoy, he is able to get the upper hand and launch a surprise attack on Garfield, ending his life with a swift kick to the face, leading us to more surprising revelations. Yes, last week's episode was just full of them. Not only do we find out that Roswell does indeed have a gospel, one of the two copies of the Tome of Wisdom, but by following the book's command, he is in fact the one that is summoning Winter, leading to the attack of the Great Rabbit, as well as manipulating Amelia to the point where she has a mental snap. But the biggest bomb is dropped when he finally announces that, hey, yes, I know you have been time looping or temporal resetting. And with his last defiant act as the Great Rabbit begins devouring him, he leaves Subaru with a parting message: find something precious and do anything at all costs to protect it. And one day, kid, you'll be like me. Eventually, Subaru makes his way back to the sanctuary trials to confront Amelia one last time. Unfortunately, he did not leave his encounter with the Great Rabbit unscathed. Battered, beaten, and bruised, he is literally knocking on death's door, so his final act seems to be being comforted by Amelia. But much to my shock and chagrin, Subaru is able to obtain something only in death that he seeks so hard in life too. As the final light finally dims in Subaru's eye, Amelia places a kiss on Subaru's lips. And when you think about it, that was a lot to put into one episode. My God, that was just a recap of last week's episode, guys. Anyways, this is where we pick up today's episode. Like I said, once again, this loop is starting over. Much like the previous loop, where he was emotionally conflicted once he saw the resemblance between the now incapacitated Amelia and Satella, this time the lingering thoughts of the kiss are on his mind. Pushing past this, the loop begins once again, and it's the same old, same old. But this time, instead of trying to do it alone, he feels the need for his compatriot, his comrade, the one individual that knows his deepest, darkest secret, and one he can rely on, or at least we assume he can rely on, Echidna, the Witch of Greed. Returning back to the sanctuary trial, he begins to beckon, plead, summon, Echidna, help me out. What do I need to do? What's my payment. I'll give you everything, anything. I just need to confront you one more time. But a very familiar voice begins to echo. This is Subaru. Behold the unthinkable present. And this is where we're given a flashback into a previous death. Yes, committing suicide by the lifeless body of Rem. This is where we are witnessing the aftermath of him deciding to commit suicide. Pleads can be heard and seen from both Amelia, Old Man Wilhelm, and even Felix is there trying to save him. While they're able to resuscitate the body, the soul has disappeared. Yes, it's moved on to the next loop. This has such an impact on Subaru, he begins vomiting. Was that real? Did that really happen? Is that what I left behind? And that brings up an amazing, interesting point when it comes to this temporal manipulation that we're seeing with Subaru. Are the timelines in fact being rewritten on top of, or do they go on by themselves to continue? We're not given much time to actually think about this because a myriad of other deaths begin to flash in Subaru's head as his voice once again beckons, behold the unthinkable present. Betelgeuse possession, suicide by cliff dive, Puck destroying the world, his cursed body being slain, frozen to death, the great rabbit, the curse affliction, being killed by the bandits, the myriad of deaths caused by the bow hunter. Not only is Subaru reliving his deaths, but he's witnessing all the lives he couldn't save, all the pain and torture he called the people he left behind. It's unthinkable, it's unimaginable. It just so happens to be the cost, an agonizing truth that once again leads him to the Tea Party, at least at second glance. First glance, something amazing has happened. Rem's alive and standing right before Subaru. In his time of need, she has shown up. His rock of Gibraltar, his shoulder to lean on, his lap to cry on. This individual that literally loves him and all of his faults has finally showed up in front of him. But does this make any sense? Rem is gone at this point. So what is she doing in front of him? Subaru is beyond elated and exhausted at this point, and as Rem is beginning to embrace him, she slips up. This is not Rem. Rem would not say these things. Go ahead and rest. No, she'd make me stand up. Get to work. Get moving on. You're my hero. Yes, she'll treat me like I'm her one and only love, but in the end, she's the strictest out of everyone I know with me. She would never tell me to give up and rest easy. No, who the hell are you? As the illusion begins to fade, we see a new witch. Yes, this time it is the Witch of Lust, commanded to dote on Subaru in his time of need by Echidna. Something is up with this lady, and we're about to find out. Now you guys let me know in the comments below. This is where I need your help. At this point, it kind of seems that this was not indeed the sanctuary trial. It was in fact Echidna, quote unquote, testing him or preparing him for the upcoming test. She admits once again that that entire world was based off the creation of his own memories, and in fact, she doesn't even know if that stuff was real. The only one who would know is the one that actually gave him return by death, Satella, the Witch of Envy. Going from what we saw to how Subaru is acting now, I believe his witch's authority has kicked in, because he seems completely calm, especially when she just announced like, hey, I put you all through that shit, so okay. And you guys did forewarn me, she is a witch, so she's probably gonna have some kind of desire attuned to her, you know, her sin. The Witch of Greed has an unquenchable thirst for knowledge, and she is currently stuck in a plane of non-existence. So the following scene absolutely makes sense as we finally hear her desire, her wish, because remember, this is the third time that he has come here and she wanted to talk about something. And it seems she wants to actually make a contract with Subaru, where in fact that she will, you know, give him the knowledge to make his desired future a possibility. Your return by death and me are an absolute perfect fit, a match made in hell, a match made in heaven, or hell, depending on how you look at it. Subaru is absolutely way too quick to jump to making a contract as she holds out her hand and all he has to do is place his on and lickety split, there we go, have a contract. Luckily, the other witches are there to step in as we see Minerva, Carmilla, the Witch of Lust, Sekhmet, the Witch of Sloth, as well as Tiafun and Daphne. Basically, all the 6 witches are here. And it seems each one is pleading with Subaru not to take this deal. I mean, she's not necessarily 9, but maybe there's more to it. She only told you the benefits. And when it comes down to her realization and this giant monologue she gives out, it's very, like, to me, it's kind of villainous, like something Doc Ock would spit out in front of Peter Parker. Like, this is some weird shit going on. What exactly is the payment to form this contract? Well, everything you were, are, or will be, I want a taste of it. What exactly does that mean? Sekhmet, the Witch of Sloth, is quick to point out, in the end. That's usually a promise made like that, in the end. Subaru is also quick to jump on, like, okay, so you said you're gonna help me get my desired future. What path will we take to get said desired future? Echidna doesn't answer. Subaru exclaims, tell me what this contract really means. Tell me. And this is where we get the truth of Echidna. It seems she is true to her sin, the witch of greed, this glutton of information. Her thirst for knowledge is truly unquestionable. Every life saved, every person killed, every death you experience, I want to be along for the ride. From every heartbreak to headache, from physical, mental to spiritual, like everything that you encompass, I want to be a part of. I will use you and you will use me. Subaru is quick to point out that this seems all just like an experiment to her, a chance to use and abuse whatever she wants to gain said knowledge. Echidna seems completely devoid of emotions or humanity as Subaru begins ripping into her ideals and her plan of action, this whole contract as a whole. Even after a complete insult to her character, there is no change in her expression. Subaru admits like, hey, this is the time where you should be mad, a fact in which she merely takes a note of, oh, that's how you're supposed to act in this situation? I will next time. Oh, by the way, the animation of her face getting really creepy, that was good. Whoever did that, thumbs up to you. Acting like the entire conversation never took place, she once again wants to converse about this actual contract. But Subaru has one more question, a question that will decide the fate of whether he's going to make this contract or not, something that's been in the back of his mind for a while now. Something that'll really test the character of Echidna, and something that shines a light on her personality and why I believe she now is one of the scariest witches, if not the scariest in the whole series. Echidna, are you in contract with Beatrice? Were you the one that is telling her to wait for that person? What exactly do you have to do with Beatrice? Not only does she admit that she had something to do with her birth, which beckons back to, an episode I had to delete of this series, but she admits that yes, she is under contract of the library, but in fact it's not, and yes, I did tell her to wait for that person. Subaru is quick to ask, well, who is that person? Who is she waiting for? And this is where the bomb is dropped. Kid admits, well, I did indeed tell her to wait for that person. I neglected to mention that that person doesn't actually exist. See, this was merely just an experiment. I wanted to see what Beatrice would in fact choose. The plethora of outcomes I've actually predicted. 400 years of loneliness? Check. Suicidal tendencies? Check. In the span of 400 years, deciding to choose no one? Check. In the end, Beatrice is just being manipulated by Echidna. If Subaru wants to save her, doesn't he just need to save her? He can be that person because there is no person. It was all some kind of manipulative experiment coming from Echidna. And of course, much like myself, Subaru is enraged. You know what? Fuck you. There is no contract going forward. Grab your hand. Fuck that. I'm choosing to grab hers. I will save Beatrice. And as he begins to utter this proclamation, a shadow is cast upon this world. I myself thought it was Echidna getting pissed off, but it turns out there is a latecomer to the witches' tea party. While it seemed most of the witches are panicking, Teophone's just having a little fun with this, seeing a very familiar face. The look on Subaru's says it all. Entering the fray, the witches' tea party, this sanctuary dimension is Satella, the witch of envy, and there is where they decide to cut the episode. I think I'm most devastated by my naivete and Subaru in turn. Maybe I played off his wanton desire to have someone to confide in, and he finally found that in the guise of Echidna, someone who he can express his true self. He can't tell anyone else in the real world, be it him or his confidant dying. He had to rely. He was put into position to rely on him, just like Amelia was put into position to rely on Subaru. Subaru had come to rely on Echidna to the point where he wasn't even going to question this contract. He was literally reaching out his hand until, thank God, the other witches were there to stop him. But it also goes back to the actual purpose of the sanctuary, this immortality, the clones of Ryuzu. It really does seem Echidna wants to cheat death. Right now, she's in this ethereal plane, this separate dimension. She is, quite simply put, just a soul, manipulating Subaru to the point where she wants to utilize his return by death and, in fact, his body to become alive again. Like, she's really trying to circumvent her own death. And that's what makes her scary. Like, this inhumanity she just put on in this episode, it's quite terrifying. Everything to her is an experiment, and it seems she's only wanting to study and learn emotions and not experience them themselves. It's scary. It's scary. It's like we're dealing with a robot. But I think eventually even AIs would learn compassion and stuff like that. But no, she is true to her sin. But she told Subaru that at the very beginning. I am the witch of greed. I have an unquenchable thirst for knowledge, and and I've done regrettable things and probably will do shit in the future. Like, you were forewarned, these chicks are witches. There's always more to meet the eyes with them, but oh God, her monologue was really devastating. And then when she finally reveals the truth behind Beatrice and why it took 400 years and realizing it was all just an experiment to see what she would do. Even knowing she predicted the possibility of her being alone for 400 years and turning suicidal. That was all predicted by Echidna. Of course Subaru's gonna be fucking upset. Fuck you, I don't want your contract. I'll go make a contract with the drill-held lolly over there that I wanna fucking save. So once and for all, we're finally introduced to all of the witches. And even though Carmilla is a little cutie, I wanna focus more on Sekhmet. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, because doesn't Subaru now have the witch factor of sloth? She's the witch of sloth. Maybe there's some shit to talk about there. Anyways, with that giant cliffhanger at the end, like, they're setting up this first core to just, anyone who watches this first half cannot not watch the second core. Like, my God, this series is ridiculous. Like, how the fuck did Satella even get in there? Like, why couldn't she do it the first time? Is it because it's the third time? Like, did she finally get past Echidna's defense? Like, I don't know what's going on. They're gonna have to explain how the hell she showed up, because my God. She goes, oh no, a very unscrupulous character has shown up. That's a troublemaker right here. Like, got a couple carrying, you got the little Tiafon just being a little child. Hey, Tella, what's up? And then you see Subaru's face like, oh, I know who Tella is. I know who, Subaru knows who Tella, we all know who Tella is. Like, my God, today's episode was amazing. Everything was amazing. God, I love this series. Anyways, like I said, we started off this next loop with a bang. Like, we need to get going though. We need to go to the next loop. We gotta figure out what's up with the mansion, what's up with the sanctuary. But now that we might have lost our confidence in Echidna, the one person who we thought we could rely on, might have to rely on ourselves. I'm scared. Anyways, today's episode was great. So with all that being said and more ReZero next week, I honestly cannot wait for future episodes.